It's almost like, it's like, when you have that weird noise in your car and you go to a mechanic and then they pop the hood and you're paying them $150 an hour. And all of a sudden your car's running perfectly in that moment. They just listen and they don't hear anything. A lot of times that's kind of a similar case to just narcissistic people. You can point out all these traits. And then when they're actually being diagnosed, and they can just kind of, act normal for long enough, and they can pass whatever, personality test that they're undergoing. But regardless of all of that, I don't want any of that stuff to be too confusing because, all of it is part of cracking the code on narcissism. And, we touched into, genes, brains, the choices where everything kind of intersects, environment, people, connections. And I'm sorry if we're following the story as if it's like a movie and finally we get to the ending and it's just there's not a satisfying ending there. But none of that actually really matters because the behavior is the behavior. What we need to focus on now is you, how this affects you, how this confusing little monster that's over there can stay over there. And how you can go towards things that you actually can control. And that's mostly your emotions and your perspective of this entire situation. And the nature versus nurture thing, it becomes really, really complicated, but it's not actually the whole story. So it is true that nature and nurture do have an intersection. And it becomes almost this, cosmic dance between, genes and environment. And disorders like this one, like narcissism, NPD, they can emerge from, just the interaction of these biological and environmental factors. You can think of it as like a superhero's origin story where, genetics lay at the foundation. But life experiences and those epic plot twists, well, these become personality disorders. Just like in narcissism. And they end up being a mix of both nature and nurture. It's like, a superhero and a villain's backstory that are all just kind of mixed up into one. What's less important than the origins of narcissism, and understanding that completely, is more of the protective factors and, your own personal risk factors. Because protective factors are almost like your shield that can defend you against, the dark forces of narcissism. And this includes, having a strong support network, access to therapy, a positive upbringing, or cultural beliefs, your cultural beliefs, where the culture that you grew up in. These all things that kind of play a part of it. And then on the flip side of all the risk factors, and these little things, these little environmental forces, they make the journey to recovery a bit more perilous sometimes because these traumatic backgrounds, having an overvalued upbringing, exposure to violence and other traumas, just can put us on the edge of darkness and get us sucked into their own darkness. And yeah, it's true. Narcissists can come from various backgrounds. They can come from traumatic backgrounds, absolutely. And they can also come from overvalued backgrounds where they were just made to feel special all the time. And they go out into the world carrying this belief and try to make it true. This, this excessive sense of just entitlement can come out at a very early age. And it's almost like they've been given the cape of a villain from birth almost. I hope you like this information. I hope this resonates with you. I hope you find it powerful. And if you do, please, like, share, follow. I have hundreds of videos on my feed. You can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and YouTube.